So there was this report. The Washington Post did a great job. So whenever they do bad, we always, which is most of the time. So this is also interesting. The Washington Post has this report, and it's been covered. You haven't seen it on TV. You haven't seen this on the TV news shows cover this. But the newspapers are covering this. So the headline there is from the Philadelphia Inquirer, says confidential documents reveal U.S. officials failed to tell the truth about the war in Afghanistan.
No.
Can you believe it?
Shocking.
And this is from the Business Insider. It says U.S. officials lied about Afghan war failures, documents reveal. What? I thought it was the worst thing in the world if we didn't believe our own government officials. Remember when Trump doesn't believe the CIA? And they go, how dare you say our CIA doesn't? He won't take the word of our own intelligence community.
How's the weather in Moscow?
Yep.
How dare you question this?
And here's The Guardian. They say Afghan papers reveal U.S. public were misled about unwinnable war. You think that would get nonstop coverage. The longest war in the history of the United States. The longest military conflict ever. We dropped $2 trillion on it. We got homeless people on every corner. Nope. 10 hours on impeachment yesterday.
Oh, Jimmy, I bet you anything on December 19th when the Democrats go to debate
Ha-ha.
here in California, you know they're going to talk nonstop about the official lies about Afghanistan. What do you bet? What do you bet? Zero questions about Afghanistan.
I'm going to guess zero. So this is very similar to the Pentagon Papers in a sense that the government did its own investigation into the Afghan war. And so there was these documents laying around. So what's called the Lessons Learned Project. Staffers carried out the interviews between 2014 and 2018, mostly with officials who served during the Bush and Obama years. So they did their own, and they interviewed like 400 people who had generals, diplomats, ambassadors, things like that. And they asked them to frank assessment of Afghanistan war and what's wrong with it. And it's called the Lessons Learned Project. And so the Washington Post had to sue to get these documents. And well, here's right from it. It says a confidential trove of government documents obtained by the Washington Post reveals that senior U.S. officials failed to tell the truth about the war in Afghanistan throughout the 18-year campaign, making rosy pronouncements they knew to be false and hiding unmistakable evidence that the war had become unwinnable. Now, I thought that you're never supposed to disrespect. You're supposed to believe everything the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, and the White House tells you. By the way, this means the Bush administration lied, the Obama administration lied, and now the Trump administration has lied. Just like the Pentagon Papers, it was their own study that got revealed, and it revealed that 4 different administrations lied to us about the Vietnam War. This is revealing 3 administrations, because that's all how many have been since the Afghanistan war started. If there had been 4, there had been 4 that lied to us. This is what the government does on the regular. I said this at the Young Turks when they were talking about government lying, and see, when I was still doing shows over there on their main show every once in a while, and they came out and they were asking about, well, do you trust the government? How much do you trust? And when do you call them out for lie? And so I remember Cenk came to me and he goes, how do you approach it? And I said, my jumping off point is that the government is lying, and now I just have to find out where. Because I think that's what real reporters are supposed to do. Because and it's bipartisan, and it's 18 years. Is this, by the way, again, shocking to anybody?
Well, we have the war on terror, and so it is shocking to me that a war against a loosely defined concept failed. But I'm going to cope with this, and my war against bad stuff probably isn't going to work out. I thought I had a slam dunk. Might not go well.
Jimmy, aren't you at all struck that it takes 18 years for this to be revealed?
Yes.
Like that, my head is snapping back.
Well,
we've all looked at Afghanistan and seen what a clusterfuck it has been, and that it takes 18 years later that somebody is able to finally reveal that this is a huge mistake, and that lives have been lost, and people's lives not only lost, destroyed.
Well, I think we all knew this, but now we just have them admitting it. So that's what this is.
On top of President Obama saying we tortured some folks.
And we tortured some folks. The documents were generated by a federal project examining the root failures of the longest armed conflict in U.S. history. The Post won release of the documents under the Freedom of Information Act after a 3-year battle, legal battle. They interviewed 400 people. This is some of the major findings. You ready? This is some of the stuff that jumped out at me. I'll share you just some of the stuff. Here's some of it. Here's a quote. It says, "We were devoid of fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing," says Douglas Lute. And who's that? Is that a Jagoff comedian? No. That's a 3-star Army general who served as the White House's Afghan war czar. Boy, how could a czar not know what they're doing? He's a czar, and he doesn't have the slightest idea what is devoid of a fundamental understanding of his mission. He was the White House's Afghan czar during the Bush and Obama administrations. That's what he told government interviewers in 2015. That they were devoid of fundamental understanding of Afghanistan, didn't know what they were doing. That's what he told them in 2015. Guess who was president in 2015? Barack Obama. So Barack Obama knew that they didn't have they had no understanding at all what was going on. Barack Obama decided to keep that war going.
And it took him until 2015 to reach that conclusion. It's like, hey, it turns out we don't know what we're doing here.
I think he probably knew it all along. He was just first time he was asked. Right? That's what this is.
Do you guys know what you're doing over there?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
But, I mean, the check's still clear, so
do you have
whoopsie-doo.
Do you have an understanding? We don't have a fundamental understanding. No. Okay. He added, what are we trying to do here? We didn't have the foggiest notion. I'm not making that up. That's a 3-star general said that. We didn't have the foggiest, not like mistakes were made, it could have been done better, and looking back, we've decided to implement some new things and how we make decisions. We didn't know our asshole from a hole in the ground. We have no idea. Are you kidding me? You might as well send a bunch of Martians over there. Since 2001, more than 775,000 U.S. troops, over 750,000 soldiers have deployed to Afghanistan, many repeatedly. Of those, 2,300 died. Pat Tillman being one of them. Remember, he was the football player, decided to go serve his country. It was 9/11 that made him quit football, professional football, and go fight for his country. He thought he was fighting for his country. Of course, 2,300 died, and he was one of them. And 20,589 were wounded in action, meaning they had a foot blown off or a leg blown off or a brain injury. With most of the people interviewed spoke on the assumption that their remarks would not become public. U.S. officials acknowledged that their warfighting strategies were fatally flawed. So they all know what they're doing over there isn't working, isn't going to work. It's the opposite of what we should be doing. In fact, we don't even know what we should be doing. But we're spending $4 billion a month there. And they just keep doing it. And this is over 3 administrations. And so do you understand the disgust that I have when I have to watch impeachment hearings and a bunch of blowhard lawyers and corporate corrupted sellouts try to act indignant about the rule of law? We have elections in America. You don't like the president? He's up for election in a few months. Get rid of him.
Yes.
Because this is what they all do anyway. They're all criminals. They're all criminals. And they all know it. This means Colin Powell knew it. Donald Rumsfeld knew it. George Bush knew it. This means that Dick Cheney knew it. This means that Barack Obama knew it. This means that right now, Joe Biden knew it. Are they going to ask Joe Biden about this? No. No one's going to. He's not going to have to answer for this. They're not even mentioning this on the news. So they've been trying to do this story for 3 years. They decided to release it, the Washington Post, which like, well, why? And first I was like, wow, is this one of those things where the Washington Post does a real story so they could say, look, we still do real stories because they know it won't have an impact because it's not. And I'm thinking, yeah, and that probably goes along with why they decided to release it now during an impeachment when it's 10 hours straight of them to have an impeachment trial on TV so they never have to talk about it. So I don't know, again, who knows? But what they found out is worse than what I just thought. What I just thought about the Washington Post timing, what they found out about our government is way worse. So the worst things that you could possibly imagine about our government are true in our war policy. The worst things possible that you could possibly imagine are true. Keep giving them money. How are you going to pay for that? It gives a shit. It's not about fixing anything, but it's about money. Since 2001, the Defense Department, State Department, and the U.S. Agency for International Development have spent or appropriated between $934 billion and $978 billion. So roughly, we're going to round up. That's $1 trillion. So $1 trillion. What did we get for this $1 trillion effort? Was it worth $1 trillion? Jeffrey Eggers, a retired Navy SEAL and White House staffer for Bush and Obama, told government interviewers. What did we get for the $1 trillion? We got nothing. We got a bankrupted country. We got broken soldiers who come home and commit suicide. We got nothing. He added, after the killing of Osama bin Laden, I said that Osama was probably laughing in his watery grave, considering how much we have spent on Afghanistan. So now if they're willing, if the government's willing to lie to you about war over and over and over in every administration, how can you trust them about anything? How can you trust them that they said they killed Osama bin Laden. Did they? They lie about the war, everything. Several of those interviewed described, I mean, isn't everything now
suspect?
Everything the government...
I shouldn't be able to question everything?
Like always, everything the government says should be suspect. But for some weird thing, since 9/11, there are certain questions you're not allowed to ask in America. There are certain topics that are off. Why? Wait, why? Because the government and the media are joined at the hip. They're the establishment, and they got to shut down dissent and questions, which is why they're not even covering the story. I
was going to say, next you're going to tell me that they deliberately misled the public.
Several of those interviewed described explicit and sustained efforts by the U.S. government to deliberately mislead the public. And you're not allowed to, there's certain questions you're never allowed to ask of the government. They lie about everything constantly all the time. And somehow news outlets will shame real journalists from questioning certain facts. Isn't that something? They said it was common at military headquarters in Kabul and at the White House to distort statistics to make it appear that the United States was winning the war when that was not the case. So Bush, Obama, and Trump all lied to the American people about the war. So when Trump says fake news, like I said, fake news comes right from the government. That's the biggest source of fake news is the government. The Pentagon, the State Department, the White House. Congress. That's the biggest source of fake news is your government. The government's not going to lose their Twitter. Is the government going to lose their Twitter account or their Facebook page? It was common for is the Pentagon going to lose their Facebook page? Is the Pentagon going to lose their Twitter feed? No. Nope. Not at all. Are they going to lose their YouTube account? No. Not at all. John Sopko, the head of the federal agency that conducted the interviews, acknowledged to the Washington Post that the documents show, quote, the American people have constantly been lied to.
I just can't believe that the Washington Post first published this. Like, my head's snapping back.
My head is snapping back also.
How did it get through? How did it get through?
Again, what I'm saying is this won't have, they must be ready to pull out of Afghanistan, or they know Trump is getting ready to, or something. I don't know why Jeff Bezos' CIA paper would allow this to be published.
Yeah, what's the end game here?
So again, it's a head fake for them in some way. I don't know what way, but in some way it's a head fake for them. Who knows? The CIA had to okay this being. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, you know how like they glorify war in the movies, and then you see what's actually going on. It's like,
right.
Like you hear Mel Gibson up there, like, they will take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. And if you did that for real, people would be saying, the American people have constantly been lied to. We don't have the foggiest idea what we're doing. We will distort statistics.
You know, Jimmy, when I used to teach high school, the kids would have to take this one class, and it was they would always, at the end of each semester, they had to do some sort of presentation on the Vietnam War.
Oh, okay.
Right? And it was, every year, it was the longest war we've ever been in. The longest war we've ever been in. And then they would talk about, this endless war that we had in Vietnam, the worst thing ever. I guarantee you those same teachers who were instructing that class don't instruct anything on Afghanistan.
Of course not. Of course not. Well, it's not in the textbook yet.
Not in the curriculum.
Not in the textbook. And they certainly can't teach them a newspaper. I had a class in high school that did teach from a newspaper, which is how I got to learn that the news was full of. Anyway, so there it is. The American people have constantly been lied to by who? Your government. You know, guys like Brennan, heads of the CIA, guys like Comey, guys like Mueller, guys like Barack Obama, guys like Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, those type of people. The lessons learned interviews also reveal how the United States military commanders struggled to articulate who they were fighting, let alone why. This is the kind of, there's a lot more to this. I can't show you the whole article and the whole thing, but watch this. Was Al-Qaeda the enemy, or was it the Taliban? Was Pakistan a friend, or were they an adversary? What about the Islamic State and the bewildering array of foreign jihadists, let alone the warlords on the CIA's payroll? According to the documents, the United States government never settled on an answer.
Well, wait, why didn't they just ask Tim Ryan? He would have set them straight.
Tim Ryan knows who
he would have helped them out.
As a result, in the field, United States troops often could not tell friend from foe. Often. Meaning always. They didn't know who they were even fighting, which is why they end up killing 40 farmers, peanut farmers, or whatever they killed the other last month. They thought I was going to, listen to this, this is unbelievable. They thought I was going to come to them with a map to show them where the good guys and bad guys live. An unnamed former advisor to an Army Special Forces team told government interviewers in 2017. It took several conversations for them to understand that I did not have that information in my hands. At first, they just kept asking, but who are the bad guys? Where are they? The view wasn't any clearer from the Pentagon. I have no visibility info who the bad guys are, complained Donald Rumsfeld in September of 2003. Two years into it, he still had no idea who the bad guys were. They don't even know who they're supposed to be fighting in Afghanistan. The United States has allocated more than $133 billion to build up Afghanistan in nation building. What does that mean? That means building roads and hospitals and schools and training their police and their military. That's called nation building. They've spent out of that $1 trillion, $133 billion of is to build up Afghanistan. The United States has allocated more than $133 billion to build infrastructure, to build up Afghanistan. More than it's spent adjusted for inflation. That's more than we spent adjusted for inflation, not in real dollars, actually adjusted for inflation. That's more money than we spent to revive the whole of Western Europe with the Marshall Plan after World War II.
That is remarkable. That is remarkable. Wow.
So is war a racket?
And we are being constantly lied to about it by every administration. Now you know why they did Russiagate and impeachment. Because nobody has the balls to go against the military-industrial complex. Not even Trump. I think Barack Obama and Trump, unlike George Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, I think Obama and Trump's gut instinct was to get out of the Middle East. I really think their gut instinct. And they totally caved into the military-industrial complex.
Well, they both campaigned on it.
Right? They both campaigned on it. And how about, you know what's hilarious? Remember Barack Obama used to say this was the smart war. This was the smart war.
I don't remember that really.
Yes, he used to say they have a foreign policy of strong and dumb. We want to have strong and smart. And the Iraq war was the dumb war, and the Afghan was the smart war. That was the smart war. The one where we don't have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea who the enemy is. We have no idea what we're doing. We don't know where the enemy is. But keep sending soldiers there to get killed, right? Keep sending soldiers there to get maimed. Wow. And so now you know why they have to smear Tulsi when she asks a question about the war. Now you know why they have to smear her. I'm always suspicious when you're not allowed to ask questions about anything, even if it's a stupid question. If it's stupid, who cares then? Who cares then? So whenever someone tries to shut you down for asking a question, there's always something there. And that's what they're doing to Tulsi. They're smearing her like crazy because she's onto something. And they can't have people questioning our wars because they know if we did, we'd find out all this stuff. And then the jig would be up and we wouldn't be spending $1 trillion on our defense budget every year. And some of those people would be out of jobs. Imagine how powerful that industry is. They just added $80 billion to all those defense contractors' bank accounts. Can you imagine just having an industry that generates $1 billion? 80 billion. It was like they invented a whole new 80 billion. How many does the record industry make $80 billion a year? I bet you not.
No, I don't think so.
So
no.
they added that on to the top of the Pentagon budget. I mean, I'm just trying to help people wrap around their minds, wrap around that number of how much money they're just throwing at the military in the middle of this is what they're doing with it. And anybody tries to pretend that they're a grown-up in Washington. Joe Biden tries to pretend that Bernie's the guy who wants to waste our money. This is what Joe Biden did.
Well, it's like that popular meme that you can find online too. It's all over Twitter where it just says like, these are what your tax dollars get you in Norway or England or a bunch of other countries, and it shows people at the doctor and people learning and people doing all these things. These are where the tax dollars go in the United States, and it's just a bunch of war happening everywhere.
So how is Joe Biden going to be able to make this not stick to him?
I used to have
Is he gonna call
suntan
me
lotion
fat?
stick to
Okay,
me.
I'll tell you how he's going to do it, because there's going to be nobody there to try to stick it on him.
Right.
No one's going to be there to try to stick it on him. And
Unless you're just a regular person.
yeah, and
everyday
he
person.
he'll call you fat.
And then challenge me to push-ups.
Challenge you to push-ups, and then we'll do a video about it, and YouTube will demonetize it, so we don't want to drop it.
I used to put sunscreen on my legs, and my leg hairs would stick up. We're talking about things that stick. Stuff would stick.
So there's
Come on, man.
There's no one there to stick this on Joe Biden. We spent more money trying to build up Afghanistan than we spent in total on the Marshall Plan building up Western
That's
Europe.
nuts. That is nuts. It's I mean, it's a good statistic to have in your pocket. I mean, not good, but you know what I mean. It's a good piece of information to know. But
Yeah.
wow,
And that's
nuts.
not in real dollars. That's an adjusted.
Adjusted. Yeah.
That's
wow.
So now you know why, if you do this kind of a show, or you're in journalism, or you shouldn't give a shit about anything. You should never, this whole idea that somehow one politician's less moral than the other politician, or they're all full of it. They're all full of it. The Democratic Party's doing that. The Republican Party's been doing that. You know who hasn't been doing that? The Green Party hasn't been doing that. The Peace and Freedom Party hasn't been doing that. I haven't been doing that. Become a premium member and get hours of bonus material every week. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com/join. Also, come see our live shows. We do live shows all the time. We're going to be in Hawaii. Then we're going to Portland, Tempe, Sacramento, San Jose, Miami. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all of our live shows. See you soon.